Hi, Liz Ness here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to draw basic shapes and turn them into 3D objects and then shade them. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, I have open here a screen-sized a canvas, and we're just going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a circle, which then becomes a sphere. So let's go ahead and do that first. So I am going to just go ahead and choose black, so you can just double click down here in the color picker to get black, and then the brush I'm going to be using is a calligraphy brush, just the monoliner. And let's see, I'm going to want that somewhere around 20%, I think, 22%. Okay, then all I do is draw a circle and then hold, and then tap with one finger to make it a perfect circle. So this is our first basic shape. All right. I can edit that shape and turn it into something else. I can turn it into an ellipse if I want to, but I want a circle because I'm creating a sphere. So when I'm satisfied, I can just tap out in the workspace here. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and just fill this with black. And then I'm going to go ahead and invert it. Let's see, actually I'm not going to invert it. I'm going to turn it all into gray. So now that it's all one color, let's go ahead and turn it to some sort of gray color. So I'm just going to tap over here just to pick up a gray color, and then I can change everything to gray. And the reason I'm doing that is because we're just going to use a monochrome color for shading. And I think that when you're first starting out, kind of thinking in terms of a monochrome is a great way to think about the shapes and also the shading. And then later on you can bring in color. At least I just kind of feel like that's a great place to start when it comes to shading and working with dimension. Okay, so now that I've got this like this, I'm going to go ahead and create a layer on top of this layer, and I'm going to tap it to select clipping mask. And now whatever I do will clip itself to that shape. So I'm going to go ahead and change my brushes. I'm going to come down to airbrushing and this medium blend. And this is a brush that just comes standard with Procreate. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and double click right here at the bottom to select black. And then I'm not right on the edge, but right along the edge, like right around here, I'm just going to go ahead and put a black swath in there. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press and hold this little smudge tool so that it selects the same brush. And now I'm just going to go ahead and kind of smooth this out. So I'm going to be kind of drawing it this direction a little bit, and then just kind of smoothing it out. And then actually I'm going to be drawing like a little circle here, and I want to just kind of smooth this out so that it kind of gives you that sense of light coming from this direction and the shadow coming down here. And I've left this purposely light because there's always a reflection off of the surfaces onto the object itself, but we need to kind of make that a little bit more realistic here too. So with that smudge tool, I'm going to just kind of bring this down in just a little bit like that. Okay, so now it looks more 3D, and actually I can tell that I'm going to need to widen this up because this is the bottom of the object. So I'm going to just use my brush and bring it out just a little more dark color here. Okay, and then go back to my smudger so that I'm smoothing out these colors here. Okay, now I really want it to be lighter up here going down, so now I'm going to go ahead and switch over to white. So double tap up here to get white, and I'm going to select that brush. I'm sorry, there we go. And then I'm going to just do a little bit right in here just to lighten it up, and then we're going to smudge in just a moment. Okay, because we don't want it to have, you know, an obvious line here. This is really, we're talking about gradients here. Okay, so now we pretty much have you know, a nice shaded, very round 3D looking object. It's a sphere. And you know, you can continue to add a little bit of color to oops, that was white, I meant to do black. Just to really bring in the look here of how dark you might want it, you know, how and where you want the shading to really be happening and that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm pretty satisfied with this, but this is how you draw a sphere. So now let's move on to our next basic shape, and that is a cylinder. Okay, to get ready for our cylinder, I've done a couple things. The first thing I've done is turn on a grid here, and if you tap the wrench and then canvas, you can select drawing guide, and we don't need to edit the drawing guide, I just need a reference so I know if things are straight, especially my lines. The next thing that I have done previously is under preferences, again wrench and preferences, I have gone to gesture controls, and under quick shapes, I tend to actually accidentally call them smart shapes all the time, but the quick shapes, I have an option selected here, the 4-finger tab. So if I haven't held long enough to actually invoke the quick shapes, that I can do that just by pressing 4 fingers down on the canvas, which is really helpful. So those are some things that I've done just to help draw, especially the cylinder here. So, okay, now the other thing I've done is I've gone back to my monoliner under the calligraphy set, and I have created a new layer and made invisible that spheric layer. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start out by creating an ellipse and just drawing the best ellipse I can and holding it to invoke those quick shapes. And once I do, I'm going to tap once, and it's going to just help me get it all lined up, and it looks like a great shape. I'm happy with that, so I'm just going to tap out into the workspace. And I'm going to go ahead and use the beauty of digital tools here when drawing and duplicate this. So I'm just going to slide this gently to the left, tap duplicate, and then with that layer selected, I'm going to go over to my transform tool, which is that arrow there, and I have snapping, the snapping option enabled here inside of the transform tools, and I just selected snapping, and I have a distance of 3 selected, and my velocity is at max. I actually think that the distance and the velocity might be the default settings, but I can't remember for sure. So anyway, that's how it is set in my setup here. So now I'm going to just use my finger and bring this down, and with snapping enabled, you can see that this is lined up with those 3 blue lines. So that's perfect. When I'm satisfied, I'm going to tap the transform tool to move out again, and now I'm going to create a new layer on top of this, and I'm going to draw my line. But I want to kind of steady my hand, so I'm going to move my device just slightly. I take 2 fingers and squeeze this down and move it down so that I can rest my hand right here on the table. And then I'm just going to draw my line and hold, and then I can edit the shape if I need to, or if I'm satisfied with it, I can just leave it. I actually think that it looks like a pretty good line, but I need it to move over just a fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and invoke the transform tool here by pressing it twice, and then I'm just going to tap a couple times, and it'll gently move over. So each little tap helps move it over just a bit. And so let's just see if that did the job. Yep, that's exactly where I want it. Okay, and so now I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to draw a line. And let's say I just draw like that, and I forget to invoke the smart shape. Well, now I can just do that 4 tap with my fingers, and that invokes the shape, and then I can edit it, and I can move the dots exactly where I want them. And that actually, well, it doesn't look like it's straight, so that's why I have the grid, so I can see what I'm doing here. Whoops, what I'm doing here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, I think I want this to move just a slightly bit that way, so I'm going to hit the transform tool, and again, just kind of tap a couple times, and there we go. Maybe it needs to go up just a little bit too. One more time. There we go. That looks great. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect these lines, except I'm going to make a duplicate of this one right here. Okay, so let's see, which one is that? I think it's this one. Yep. Okay. So I want a duplicate of this, and this is so that we can shade it the way we want to shade it. Okay, and I'm going to make this actually the bottom one be the duplicate, and I'm going to merge all of these together. So with that top layer selected, I'm going to go ahead and tap it and merge down, and do the same thing, merge down, and do the same thing, merge down. Okay, now this is my basic shape without that other ellipse involved. Okay, but I do want the other ellipse involved because we're going to use it for our coloring. Okay, so I definitely want there to be like light coming from the top down, and I'm going to use this part to be the part that's visible, like that it's the edge that we can see, and this is going to be invisible, but it gives us our bottom shape that we need, and so that's great. So okay, so let's go ahead and fill this shape right now that's visible, and actually I'm going to put, but before I do that, let's take this bottom shape, I'm going to move it up top, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn off the visibility for a moment. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill this shape that's all complete here with let's see, I'm going to turn the edges gray. So let's go ahead and do that really quickly. Let's see, I do have a monochrome set here, and actually I'm going to go ahead and use the colors from this just to keep it simple, and I'm going to go ahead and give you a link in the description for this monochrome set. It's free for everybody if you go to my site, the link that I leave for you. So I'm going to just turn it into this color of gray, and so I'm just going to come over here and drop it on the lines. Oops, that went inside. That's not what I wanted. There we go. Now all the lines are the proper color. Okay, and now I can start filling in the whole entire shape in this color. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay. And just for the time being, I am now going to go ahead and make visible that upper layer again. And I'm going to go ahead and just put black in there. And we'll deal with that in just a moment. But now you kind of get the idea of what's going on with this shape. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start shading this. And so we're going to go back to our airbrushes. Actually, the first thing we're going to do is select that layer, put a layer on top of it, and then select clipping mask. And then we're going to go back to our airbrushes. And that same airbrush, that medium blend, is selected. And I'm going to just go ahead and again, right along the edge, it's going to stay kind of a little bit gray like that. But then I want it to be dark down here, and I want the light. Let's see, do I want the light coming from this side or this side? I probably want it coming from the side, just like the sphere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this side more dark. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw a nice shaded area right in here. I kind of want that to be consistent there. And I'm leaving just a little bit on the edge there. And let's turn off our drawing guide just so that the lines there don't confuse the image itself. So you can just sort of see that there's a little bit of a lighter shade right there along the edge. And it's probably just a tad wide right here, but we'll take care of that with our smudge tool in just a moment. And then I want to go ahead and select white, and I'm going to go and do just about the same thing over here. Okay, and now I'm going to take our smudge tool, which should still be the same brush, which it is, it's the medium blend. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start smudging along the edges here and here. Okay. I'm just kind of pulling it over. We just really want this to look very smooth. Okay. And again over here we want this to look really smooth. So I'm just kind of do this. Okay, it kind of has a little bit of a flattish effect because of what I've done here. So I need to put just a little bit more, I need to pull this white over just a little bit more towards the center of the shape so that it really seems like it's coming up to a center point here. And same with the black, I need to kind of pull it this way. Okay. All right. Now it looks a little bit better here. So we've got pretty good shading here for our cylinder, but we've got this top part, and the way it looks right now, it almost looks like it's a deep hole in, but we would really need to shade it to make it look more like it was a hole in, because there would be, you know, light over here and dark over here because the light source is coming this way. But really I wanted this to be a light top. So now it's time for me to change that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to that layer. I'm actually going to tap it and invert it, and that's a little bit too white obviously, so I'm going to sample a color over here in the lighter parts, and there we go. Now I'm just going to drop it right on top there, and that makes for a really sort of believable top for our cylinder. Now the one thing I'm noticing right off the bat is how dark it is right there compared to the rest of it. So I want to go back to that layer, the clipping mask layer, and I'm going to take my smudge tool and I'm just going to try to soften that up a little bit. There we go. And all the way down. Okay. So now that looks really, really convincing, like it could be the top of a metal rod or something like that. Okay, so that's the second in our basic shapes. The next one will be a cube. Okay, for the square we have our drawing guide again, and let's see, this time I'm going to go ahead and start with gray, and because we're going to create 3 different sides for our cube, starting with a square, but then we have sort of these diamond shapes, and they need to be different colors because the different sides, we need to start out that way. That's the easiest approach. So let's see, Let's see, what else can I tell you? I don't know. I think that's probably about it. Okay, so as we get started here, I'm going to go ahead and turn my device just slightly to make it easier for drawing, and I'm also going to be able to steady my hand on the table here. And one of the things that I found is that squares can be kind of tricky when it comes to quick shapes. They don't always work out the way you think that they will, but it seems like when I draw very quickly and I try to draw my best square, that works out the best. So let's go ahead and try that. We're just going to do our best job at creating a very quick square here. And just hold, invoke the shapes, tap once, and it did a pretty good job, which is great. Sometimes though you'll find that like the lines won't be connected and things like that, so you'll have to make some adjustments, and that's fine. So that's our square. Let's go ahead and fill that shape right now with our gray color. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this just for some guidance here. So let's go ahead and drag it over, duplicate, and then we're going to go ahead and change the size just a bit. So we're going to tap our transform tool, and with uniform selected, we're just going to bring it up one square like that, and then we're going to move it, the whole thing sort of out like this. Okay, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to change the opacity of that just so it gives us a guide for where we want our diamond shaped lines. And I think I want this to be back just a bit further. So let's go ahead and select the transform tool again and just bring this back maybe to here. That seems pretty good. Okay, so now with a new layer, I'm going to, let's see, what color do I want this layer to be? I think it doesn't matter that much, but if I have the light again coming from this side, let's make it just a tad bit darker. So let's go with maybe like that color or something, maybe, yeah, maybe that color. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and draw our lines, and we're just going to do the best of our ability here, and you know, so just up here, down along that line, and then to there, and then whoops, oh, I didn't go fast enough. Let's try that again. Maybe I'll go backwards. So I'm going to go down this line, up to that corner, up to that corner, and then back over here. There we go. Okay, now let's go ahead and edit the shape. It is a quadrilateral, and that's actually good. And then we can bring this up to this corner like that, bring this up to that corner like that, and make sure that's out that corner. Okay, and we want this to be nice and straight, and the guides help us see that they're straight or not. Actually, this one needs to be a little straighter too. There we go. Okay, that's awesome. So I'm going to tap out into the workspace, and now I'm going to go ahead and fill that shape just like that. Okay, excellent, excellent. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and create a layer on top of that. And that one, because it's a light source, I'm going to make it a lot lighter in color. So let's try this color right there. Okay. And I'm going to kind of do the same thing. Let's see, do I have a new layer? I do. I keep forgetting when I do new layers. Okay. So we're going to go along this corner, right there, over that corner, along this line, and then back up to the corner. There we go. And then just hold it. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and edit this shape. And it looks like, yeah, right like that. Okay. And it looks like it didn't really join together very well right there. So we're going to have to go back and fix that in just a moment. That's fine. Okay, but the rest of it looks pretty good. So now I'm going to make, actually I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this particular layer back there. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn off my grid for a moment, because I want to look at that line right there, and I want to make sure that I can fill over it. And I'm going to bring my pencil down in size just a little bit so that I can just kind of, you know, work my way through it, sort of smooth that line. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so now I can go ahead and drop the color right in there. And as I'm looking at it, I can see that, you know, some things need to be adjusted here a little bit. And the square, I'm going to put it on top so that it has more of an appearance of edge to it. And I kind of want to move it over just a little bit. So I'm turning on the transform, and I'm just kind of gently tapping like that. And so now it gives me sharper corners everywhere, which is great. That's kind of what I want. And I kind of want this darker one to also have sharper edge, because I feel like that would be more noticeable. So I'm actually going to bring that above my top layer here, just like that. And then I can tell that it needs to move over just a tad, so I'm going to turn on the transform tool and I'm going to move it over just a bit. Again, just trying to help the appearance of edges here. And this is a little bit round, but it's also a little bit off to the side a bit. So one of the things I need to do is adjust this. I'm going to go ahead and select the transform tool, and this time I think I'm going to go warp. Okay, so that I can really bring this corner up and in where I want it. So I'm going to touch that and just bring it up like that. There we go. Okay, that's it. That's all I had to do. Okay, that's great. Okay, so now we have a really good looking cube there. And the shading is almost done for us because we started out this way, but we kind of want to, you know, make it a little bit darker and smooth it out over here. And actually, I mean, not darker along the edge, we just want to make it lighter along this edge. And same thing, we want to make it lighter along this edge. And then we want to give us that lighter gray color along that edge. So we're going to go ahead and combine these shapes together now because we're satisfied with this. So tap that upper one, merge down, tap this, merge down, and then create a layer on top of that and tap that layer and select clipping mask. And then we're going to go back to our airbrushes again. Okay, and we've got that lighter color selected. I think it might be just a tad too light, so we're going to go ahead and hold here and select sample that color right there, and then I'm going to just kind of gently go along the edge right here. And that's looking pretty good for our square. So we've got, I'm sorry, our cube. You know, we could go continue working on this, which would be fine. But I feel pretty satisfied with the way this looks right now. Okay, so let's move on to our next two shapes. We'll do those together. One is a prism and one is a cone. Okay, for our cone and our prism, I've gone ahead and turned on the the grid again for our canvas, and I'm back in gray, and my monoliner has been selected again. And now I just need to create a new layer, which I have done already for my new shape. So I'm going to start out with a triangle. And so we're going to start here, and we're going to go out a little ways, and then come here, and then that's about 3 over, so then we're going to go back up after that. So right there and hold. All right, and let's edit the shape, and it's giving me some options here, but it's chosen triangle, which is great. That's exactly what we wanted. So I'm going to tap out into the space and keep that. I think I want that to be a little bit bigger though, so I'm going to go ahead and select my transform tool, and with uniform selected, I'm just going to increase the size there just a little bit. Okay, now it's ready for its ellipse, but let's go ahead and put that on a separate layer just so that we can move it around if we need to. So with a new layer created, let's go ahead and start here in the corner and just sort of draw an ellipse and hold. Okay, and then we're going to use our finger to tap. And now let's go ahead and edit the shape. And it knows it's an ellipse, but let's go ahead and move these so that they line up nicely with the line of our triangle. And that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and tap out here and just see. Okay, it looks like I need to bring it just a little bit over more, which is fine. And that's one of the reasons we went on a separate layer. So let's go ahead and select our transform tool, and I'm just going to bring it out this way just a tad. Okay, that looks like that's going to be perfect. Okay, so now I can merge these shapes together. So I'm going to tap that ellipse layer and merge down. And now I'm just going to bring the colors right in here, just drop them right in. And that looks like it might have been a little dark, but we can change that. Let's go ahead and select a lighter color here, and then just drop it into the whole entire shape. Perfect. Now it's ready for shading. So let's go ahead and start shading this. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I like our cone, and now we're ready to move on to our prism. What we're going to do is we're going to come from a center line up here, and we're just going to come out a little ways and go to a corner, and then come down a corner, and then go right back up. go ahead and edit our shape, and we're going to select triangle to begin with, and then bring this down here. It starts right along the center there, so I want to make sure that the line is pretty well lined up. It's a little difficult for me to control. There we go. Okay, I think this is going to be just fine. So that looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and tap out into the workspace, and then I'm going to go ahead and fill it with our light color here. Okay, and it looks like there's we may need to adjust this just a tad bit with our eraser tool, so we might get it cut along the line. So let me just make this a little bit bigger, so you can see what I want. A nice point up here, and I want it to be all lined up. So we're gonna press and hold our eraser so we get the same brush, and then I'm just gonna start erasing, and I'm gonna hold when I get down to the bottom here. Okay, and now it's a line, and I'm gonna go ahead and edit the shape so that I can really cut this right where I want it. So I want it right along my grid line, and same with this one. Okay, right like that. So now it's just right along the grid line, and it's really good. So that's great. So now I'm going to tap the layers just so I can get out of that shape, and then I can bring it back down out of the quick shapes there. Okay, so now I am going to go ahead and, oh, I see that I accidentally drew this on the same layer, and that's not a problem. So let's go over to our selection tool, and then we've got rectangle selected, and then we're just going to draw a rectangle around our shape. And then I have 3 fingers where I can drag and get a menu, and I could cut and paste from here, or I can go all the way over to my wrench if I don't have that option selected, and I can go to add, and I can cut, and then I can paste, and it'll paste it on a new layer for me. So that's how you can get yourself out of a little bind if you wind up drawing on the same layer. Okay, so now with this the way it is, I'm going to go ahead and gently glide that over to the left, and I'm going to tap and duplicate. Okay, and now I'm going to go over to my transform tool, and I'm going to tap flip horizontal, and then I'm just going to drag this right on over, and it's got snapping, so it's telling me that it looks like it's all lined up. There we go. Let's see, truly lined up. Whoops. Right there. Okay, perfect. But it is a little bit off, so I am going to just tap my finger and bring it so that it's all in like that. There we go. That looks pretty good. And now I'm going to go ahead and change the color here to something darker, and I'm just going to drag. Woo! Okay, yep. Drop right on there. Okay, awesome. And let's go ahead and turn off. I suspect that there might be a little bit of a gap still there, so I'm going to turn off my canvas now. Or sorry, not the canvas, the drawing guide. There we go. Yep, and that's true. So I'm going to go ahead and select that transform tool, and then once again just tap a couple times to move the shape over just a few pixels. Perfect. And so now we can merge these 2 layers together. I actually see something at top here though. Looks like we've got quite a little spot that's sticking out there. So I'm going to take my eraser, I'm going to dial it down just a little bit, and I'm just going to gently get rid of that. Okay. Let's go ahead and merge this down so I can just erase the whole thing because it's on both, of course. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, and now with those 2 layers merged, I can create a layer on top, and once again select clipping mask, go to my airbrushes, and do a little bit of shading. Alrighty, and that is how you do the basic shapes. And again, use quick shapes wherever you can. That would be my recommendation. Use the grid, you know, turning it on and off so you can see what you're doing. And then using that transform tool, I mean, that really helps a lot, both using snapping and uniform as well as the warping options to help you get what you need to get. And then, like I said, I like to use airbrushing, but there are actually some really great brushes out there for sale that are shaders, and you know, those are an option too. But my recommendation, again, is to start out with monochrome, black and white, so that you can really get a handle on shading. And the next thing we would do is add shadows on the ground. If you've enjoyed this video, please be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell so you're notified when new videos become available. Meanwhile, I hope your day is amazing.